Hey everyone, this is once again Paul and Alejandro with the X Button podcast. We've got plenty of juicy information, but first, Alejandro, why don't you say hi for me?
Hi, happy daylight savings.
Yes, for the most part, at least.
How you doing
We're
this
recording
morning?
on Wednesday. I am still trying to recover from this nonsense daylight savings, as well as the flu that I had last week and the week before that. It still affects my voice. It still affects my energy levels, but I'm here and I'm alive, so I'm doing my best.
Alive and kicking.
That is true.
So, Paul,
Phew.
we're recording this morning because
We had
big
some big
news.
stuff going down as of at least last night, and it was a little too late to record that night, but we are doing this as soon as we can to get this out there to the rest of the world because boy, is it some news, and I'm sure we have plenty to talk about it. But before all that, Alejandro, what have you been playing this week?
Quite a lot, actually, because finally the tsunami has started hitting our shores. So, what I have been playing was the Division 2 expansion, like
Oh,
I
that's
kind of
right.
mentioned a couple weeks back, the
Mm-hmm.
Warlords of New York, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is what I wanted. The Division 2 to be like going back to a city that was eerie, going back to a city that I preferred.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and already the Division 2 was already a better game mechanically than the first one, but I just didn't like Washington. It just didn't feel appealing to me, especially visually. It just felt like I was playing Wildlands sometimes because it was all green and stuff, and I prefer something colder by myself. And to be fair, New York here is not like on winter, but it feels eerie because there's
Mm-hmm.
just something eerie about the tall buildings.
Hmm.
So yeah, I got to finish that campaign and then uh hit my head on a brick wall with the end game, which is ridiculous
Oh boy.
because like it's just bullet sponge enemy hell forever. so
Mm.
uh so yeah, I kind of put some brakes on that. Then late last night, I got to start playing Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which is one of the best alliterations ever in a game. In a
Oh yeah.
game, the Will of the Wisps. So you have never played the original Ori, right?
I did not because I was I think PC and Xbox, and at the
Yeah,
time I didn't have either of those.
it's on Switch. It came out on
Right.
Switch last
I
year.
it was one of those like at this point it's been too long, and I know I would enjoy it if I played because it's more like a platformer, right?
Metroidvania.
Okay. So I probably would not enjoy it as much as most people. Like I know you love your Metroidvania games, and I'm more
Wait, you
on the
don't?
fence. No, you remember we had that whole conversation when Control played out, and I was like, I can't find anything. I hate
Mm,
this map. It's driving me crazy. And you're like, oh yeah, you probably wouldn't like most Metroidvania games.
yeah, but you played the side scroller ones, right? Those are different than the 3D ones, which are more confusing.
That is true. I'm trying to think of any Metroidvania game I've actually played. I mean, like I've played the some of the old Castlevanias,
There you
which
go.
about half of what that is. Um, but they never had backtracking for me. Symphony of the Night did, but I did not play as much of that one as I did Rondo of Blood,
Which was
and
more linear.
then I played Lords of Shadow. Was that called? What it's called? The
Lords of Shadow,
Xbox
the 3D
360.
one.
Yeah, yeah. So I played that one, and that was good, but I never actually finished it because I couldn't deal with how frustrating it was at times. Not cut to play, but just like in general, I was like, "What am I doing again?"
Yeah.
So
So,
yeah, that was a few
so,
of
that,
those.
so Ori is still Metroidvania, and I really, really, really love those kinds of games. But I think what makes Ori special is like everything surrounding the Metroidvania-ness of it. Like,
Hmm.
it's very emotional, minimalist story. Like, it's incredible visual art style. Like, literally every still of that game could be a wallpaper for me. Just
Hmm.
like look at images, it's like incredibly pretty,
Yeah,
and
really.
it definitely feels like more Ori, and Ori was my game of the year in 2015. So I've been waiting 5 years for a sequel, and I don't know why it took them so long
Jeez,
to
it's
make
been
this one, but
5 years.
yeah, 5 years.
Holy moly! It feels like the
Yeah,
other one just came out.
yeah, no, 2015.
Oh,
March
wow,
2015.
that's impressive.
I was a junior in college still.
Hmm.
So so yeah. so so
Wow.
yeah, to be fair, they're like an indie studio that Microsoft has been like funding. So
Hmm.
from what I was reading, they were like 80 people working on the thing,
Wow.
and apparently 20 of them worked from home, which is kind of cool.
That's
Yeah,
actually amazing.
I actually read like a game industry that this article today that a lot of people that worked on that game worked at companies like Blizzard,
Hmm.
Activision, and all that. And kind of like the incentive for them to go to work for them was that, hey, you can work from home in your pajamas.
Huh,
I would think that would be very appealing to everyone.
absolutely.
So yeah, by looking at the craft of it, like you can tell they pour a lot of love and care into Ori. Yeah, if you can at least watch a playthrough of it, it's just so visually appealing. It's just it's kind of like that prettiness that just makes you feel like you're in heaven.
Hmm.
Kind of like just it just stimulates you in a not too disturbing way.
There you go again with the stimulation. You said it twice in the last episode and once already in this one.
Yeah, I gotta get the stimulation quotas in.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it's either that or crisis. I didn't talk about crisis last time. So,
True. All right.
yeah, so
Um.
and also the Destiny 2 new season, which I
Oh yeah.
think
How's
might
that?
be my breaking point with Destiny right now.
Oh
Like
really?
surprisingly, yeah. It's just like its main appeal is like the multiplayer competition that I told you last week, the Trials of
That's true.
Osiris, that launches on Friday. But like for PvE, that's more like my thing. It just feels way too grindy for me. It's just like do these bounties and now gain this currency, and now you have to farm 190 of this currency so you can get this upgrade for this base that you are, as you're like trying to destroy this huge ship that's hurtling down to earth.
Hmm.
And at least just on first impression, I was like, this feels like busy work. So I'd rather just play finish Ori right now.
Mm.
So, and I dabbled into the how can I say that, the super not so secret battle royale that dropped out that yesterday, that
Yeah.
was like leaked forever.
For
The
Call of Duty.
Modern Warfare.
Hmm.
Have you played that?
I have. I've gotten to play a good few matches actually of it. I made the mistake of trying their plunder game mode, which
Mm-hmm.
is a extremely rough. I don't know what it exactly was like because there's to explain for anybody listening that hasn't actually tried it yet. Basically, you're dropping in. There's no circle, but it's the same map, and your goal is to one run around and complete these little missions that are around there, which are in the regular battle royale mode, but they're more focused in this. They give you money when you get them, and your goal is to get $1 million, and basically that's how you win the game. um, what you have to do from there is you either do these missions, you pick it up in the world, or you kill other players and steal their money. But the problem that with that is what I found was one of my issues with the dark zone and the division actually,
Griefing.
where you have to go to certain areas to pick up or like to drop off the money and bank it basically, and people will just sit there and camp because the apparently the places that they go to are always the same.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to go to those places to activate the helicopter to come in, and so you can bank your money. Well, people will just sit there and snipe you or shoot you the second you run up to get it, because you still die fairly quickly overall,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you have a good weapon. And well, nobody could really bank their money until one person would run up after they killed all the other people and stole all the money,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And then you respawn and you just keep doing the same thing. I think I was stuck in that game for about 45 minutes because nobody could like keep all their money. And it just kept going back and forth until eventually I think a timer ran out and the game just ended. Um, and I was so disappointed that I actually turned off the system entirely and just didn't bother with it for like most of the day. And then I went back in for the battle royale mode, and that was so much more fun because there was the stakes, there was the circle of the gas that was flying in, there was all the usual things that you kind of enjoy with the tenseness of it. Unfortunately, it is very much not as polished. Like I always say, Apex Legends has spoiled me for
Hmm.
battle royale games because just the quality of life stuff is so useful. Like I mean, yes, you can ping now, but it's with the up directional button, which
Hmm.
requires you to either take your thumb off the movement or take your index finger off of the L1 and L2,
That's what I did.
which is not acceptable when you're trying to shoot with the L2 button, or like zoom in with the L2
Hmm.
or throw something with the L1. And it's gotten me killed more often than not when I'm trying to ping somebody and then they shoot me. Um, then the other issue is when you jump, there's no indication of when you're jumping to the other two teammates if they're randoms. So you'll oftentimes have one dude be like, this feels kind of nice, and then we'll just hit the jump button without
Hmm.
you realizing it, and then suddenly your whole team spread across the excuse me, the entire map.
Hmm.
And then of course, like, you mostly just fall straight down unless you pull your chute early. And what was something else? I do like that you have your individual slots for inventory on weapon in ammo,
Hmm.
that you don't have to worry about dealing with, like, oh man, I don't have enough space for all this ammo because I have a grenade or something like that. So I enjoy that. Still, of course, the actual shooting mechanics are amazing and I love it. I'm
Hmm.
just not as accurate as a lot of these people sniping with iron sights across a massive distance. Excuse me. But overall, it seems like a lot of fun as long as you have a couple of friends with you.
I mean, that's always the big thing with this battle royales, right? Like, better with
True, but
friends.
sometimes you can enjoy it still by, like, even if you have a couple of randoms, as long as they don't die immediately and quit the game, you can still get a lot out of it. Especially like Apex Legends with the pinging system, you don't even have to
Mm,
have a mic. I will say that it's a hit and miss. Sometimes you get some trash people, but for the most part, like, you end up dropping all at the same time because there's one person that controls it, so you usually end up in the same area.
mhm.
You get to ping to communicate, and you have so many options to ping that you can tell them pretty much everything you ever need. And it's just because of the abilities, it makes you be able to work together as a team. You've got defense, you've got offense and stuff. But not to say that Apex doesn't have all of its limitations as well. I just find that it seems that it's easier to remain together and actually enjoy it, even if you're not part of a whole
It's
team.
just the design. The design is like literally made for the trio. So,
Right.
it's like it's almost impossible for you to go solo and fight a team of three because of the time to kill and all the different permutations and stuff. So that's why
I
you're
will agree
always
to
encouraged to be together.
that. But I'd almost say that it's very difficult, if not impossible, to do the same in the Modern Warfare Battle Royale. Because I had the unfortunate time in my first match. The first guy got kicked for an activity, and the second one died in about 3 minutes and quit. And then I realized that I was having a nightmare of a time trying to survive. But I will say, one thing that Modern Warfare did fantastic with their Battle Royale mode was the Gulag respawn system. Which I don't know how much you've gotten to experience that,
Not
Alejandro, when you
much.
died. So the basic idea is when you die, no matter who you are, like, if even if your whole team dies, you all go to the gulag first, and you get a second chance to kill somebody else that also died to get your chance to fly back in for free. And if you beat them, you get like one random weapon each. You get a grenade and a tactical throw, and if you kill them, you just drop right back into the action. You get to go see your buddies. Even if they're all in there, they can actually give you call outs because they're looking down at the whole thing,
Mhm.
which has actually saved my life a lot of times. And then I just end up right back in. And even if you lose, your buddies can still buy you back. And for the most part, just kind of pick up where you left off as long as they're willing to buy you back. But that was actually a lot of fun. Honestly, it added a lot of interest to it because it was like, oh man, I died, I'm done. And even like more so, where instead, like with Apex Legends and a Fortnite now that does have respawning. You have to sit there and wait for them to bring you over to the thing. Well, in the Gulag, it's kind of in your own hands. If you do your best and you actually win, you're right back in the action.
Yeah, to me, it's like the battle royale is still just what all the previous battle royales have been. Just a fun novelty that I'm just not gonna play.
Hmm.
Just not my kind of game. It's all. I always find it neat when there's always a new entry into the scene, especially because Fortnite is like slowly declining now.
Mm.
Like I have been reading some of the stats that it's just not generating as much interest as it was in 2018, or even around when the black hole event happened.
Hmm.
So which that was cool because it was like you could just tune in to a Twitch streamer to see what weirdness was happening.
Yeah,
But
really.
yeah, to me, it's like this will just be a fad eventually that will just keep dying down. And I feel Call of Duty is the last one that can come into the scene and probably succeed, because I feel it's like this is like the Overwatch thing, that once you have your established genre king, why
Mm.
even bother? Like why even bother trying to get, because people will just default to the king. So
It's
uh,
true. I
yeah.
do think it's still more of a toss up on who's actually doing their best because different games offer different
Hmm.
like ways of play. The meta is very different for a lot of the different battle royale games at this point. I'd say, I mean, some have definitely fallen by the wayside and just completely dropped off. But
PUBG,
uh, yeah, PUBG. There's a
the one that
couple
started it
others.
all.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about yesterday how far we have come from the extremely rough activity, the way it plays out with PUBG, the frying pans, the dropping
Mhm.
in randomly, the really rough animations. Because that was in early access, I think, when that came out for a long time. They didn't even
Yeah,
have
on
like
PC from like
climbing.
March to December 2017.
Jeez, it's been that long.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and during early access when it sold the most.
I bought it in early access because I thought it was going to be a huge thing, but that
It
was
was.
back when I was not really playing on PC, and then I realized I was absolutely terrible at it, and could not play that game to save my life. So after about 2 weeks, I just dropped it.
Yeah.
Oh man! But some people love
I
that.
never played a PC. I actually played on early access on Xbox, and it was horrible. Like the like it was a completely unoptimized mess. It was like I couldn't believe that even though it was an early access, people would find that acceptable.
Hmm.
And unfortunately for that console version, Fortnite had already come out with the battle royale, which was much more polished.
Hmm.
So at least on console, they lost that battle, like
True.
handfully. They lost it, and
And it was free to play for Fortnite, which it was about
exactly,
$30 for PUBG,
yeah,
and you got
and
almost nothing.
and the problem was that uh, you can point at Fortnite releasing that as free to play as the nexus for why GameStop is dying. So
Ooh.
yeah, and they actually, and a couple stories that I was reading over the last couple weeks of people, actually, actual journalists going into different GameStops and talking with management, all that.
Hmm.
They've been pretty vocal that they're like, "Yeah, Fortnite is killing our industry." Because why would they even go to a store to buy something if they can just play something for free? And
Hmm.
I really hate that idea, because it's just devaluing people that are actually making games that are worth money. And
True.
all these battle royales, what are doing is devaluing that. You'd be like, oh yeah, you can get this for free, just pay us microtransactions over the long haul. So,
Hmm. Well,
so yeah.
I'd
Anything else that
say
you've been playing?
not playing. I did watch a couple of things, but I wasn't sure when you wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, throw it out, throw it right now.
All right. So I've actually been watching the season 3 of Young Justice now.
Oh yeah,
Um,
on the DC Universe app.
I actually found it bootlegged, but
Oh.
yes, it is their version. It's just not on their streaming service because I didn't want to pay the money. Excuse me.
Mhm.
Just to watch that. Not to mention with how many episodes it actually has, it would have taken me too long to like just kind of burn through the trial.
But they're short. You could make it in a week.
they're 30 minutes, but there's like 20 something of them, and I'm not able to sit through and watch that all day. So I figured I just kind of like would pace it out. I'm watching like one or two a day.
Hmm. Oh, okay.
Um, and it is a wild ride so far because I
Yeah.
was kind of curious what they'd actually throw in now that they can kind of put in whatever they want.
Hmm.
And it's really been a lot more because the aesthetic's the same.
Hmm.
Generally, the idea is the same, but
But
more
it's
it's
more
like they
adult.
can capture deeper and darker issues. Like
Hmm.
the whole season is about like human trafficking
Yeah.
basically, but for the meta humans.
Yeah.
And you can do so much with that, and clearly they're like exploring the idea of like using these people as human weapons.
Hmm.
There was like a suicide bomber in one episode,
Yeah.
and it's just that was there's a lot going on. And then
And there's some really gruesome stuff at times,
yeah, like
like the kid that
poor
got
Halo.
burned. I remember.
Yeah, Halo, the girl, and the
Hmm.
burqa getting absolutely melted, and or like getting her neck snapped. Like she seems to be the fodder for the
Hmm.
season, unfortunately, because like she gets killed, and it's crazy because they keep reacting the same way every time she dies, even
Hmm.
though they've watched her come back to life like 3 or 4 times at this point. And she's just like, "Yep, I'm back. All right, cool." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're alive!" And I was thinking, like, what didn't you just watch her die in a different way a second ago?
Yep.
Um, but I do like the new characters. I wasn't sure if I would, but they've grown on me. I like the differences that they add to the team. Um, I'm still more interested, of course, in those that I like grew up with, and which I found out the show came out in 2010.
Yeah.
So it's been 10 years since that started, and it feels like it was not nearly that long.
Yeah.
But
And the thing that happened was
mhm,
that episodes were staggered for a long time. Like
yes.
season 2 ended in 2013 when it got canceled. So that's why it feels like it's been longer. But when you actually look at the episode counts, you're like, wait, there's only 2 seasons.
Hmm.
So,
And
yeah.
I'd say Young Justice is a really great example of what you can do when you, as a creator, reach out to the community. Because if you remember when Netflix picked it up, they were like, guys, they've given us this opportunity. If you watch Young Justice,
Hmm.
like they may give us the green light to start another season. Everybody went ballistic and started
Hmm. And
rewatching it.
rewatching it and rewatching it.
And yeah, and eventually like it proved to the big executives that
There was a
it
man.
got yeah, there was a demand in it, and I'd say that was like alongside the whole Sonic redesign for this recent movie, that was probably one of the best examples of the community coming together, at
Hmm.
least in recent memory, that proved that the executives will occasionally listen to the regular consumers, and that made me really
And it's
excited.
not just that. In TV, that has happened recently. Like when a show is like facing cancellation or it's been canceled and gets
Mm,
revived. Like when there's always like a huge fan revolt, let's say, or like huge fan campaigns.
right.
Most shows get revived. Like for example, over on Netflix, another DC property. If people forget it's DC, but Lucifer. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, that's a DC property, and it was on
There's a
Fox.
comic
Yeah,
series.
yeah, and it got canceled after season 3. But then there was a huge fan campaign that got Netflix to pick it up for
Huh.
season 4 and 5, and apparently 6 now over at
Dang.
Netflix. Over at Fox, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the comedy. Uh,
Oh, that got canceled?
yeah,
I
that
did
got
hear
canceled,
some
but then
stuff, but
NBC picked it up. So
that's right.
yeah, so things like that have happened. And my personal favorite show of all time, Chuck, from
Mm,
Zachary Levi.
yeah.
Historically, that's one of like the coolest save the show campaign that happened, where Subway was like a big sponsor for the show within the show. They have had the characters like eating Subway and all that.
Huh.
That then by the time before the season 2 finale, they a lot of fans actually went to Subway and buy sandwiches. And every time that they were buying sandwiches, they would leave like tips and noting it. So they're like, we're here because you guys were on Chuck, and we're proving that your sponsorship matters.
Huh.
And then Subway decided, yeah, our revenue skyrocketed in this day because of this fan campaign. So
Huh.
they became kind of like co-financiers of the show for like the later seasons.
Whoa.
So
Man,
So
I
like,
never even heard about any of that too, so that's crazy.
yep. So, no, but it's always cool when that happens.
Mhm.
Actually, it's a reason. Like for example, one of the show that I was watching last week and I recently finished, Shadowhunters. Right
Mm,
now, that's still in the middle of a Save Shadowhunters campaign that
really?
it's been going for a full year. Yeah, so I was reading about it because that show only had 3 seasons, and
Mhm.
that show was like, yes, it was on Freeform, but it was also co-financed by Netflix. So because Netflix is
Oh,
the one that distributed it internationally, and
yeah.
apparently Freeform was trying to move away from like the long seasons, like the 20 to 22 episodes,
Right.
because they just didn't find it like a financially viable. But apparently Netflix wasn't having it because they had signed up for like a certain amount of episodes that they were going to finance. So apparently Netflix is the one that pulled the plug, and that's why the show ended.
Oh
And
shit.
it's interesting because it had the dignity of being canceled way ahead of time, that they were able to film like a 2.5 hour series finale, even though
Ooh.
when you're watching that third season, it never felt like it was building towards an ending. So it was kind of a bummer feeling that, because I'm like, oh, you could tell that they were not prepared for that, but at least they were still able to end it. So but there's still people campaigning for that thing. I was like, because when I finished that show, I kind of been in like some sort of withdrawals. That show got me caught, Paul. That show really got me way too invested than I was expecting.
Which blows my mind that that was able to happen right after I was like, that show is garbage. And you were all, oh, maybe I want to try it out. I think it might be interesting. And now you
And the
are
thing
just
is, it
hooked
is.
like a
But
small teenage woman.
no. And that's the thing, that it appealed to my inner teenager, the
Oh,
angsty
God.
teenager in a way. Like, I really got a little too hung up with the relationships. So it was like, it's been a while since a show like made me feel that way, that even after it ended, I've been like reading all sorts of cast interviews and videos and all of that.
Oh,
It's like
no.
yeah, it's
You got it
yeah,
badly,
there was
man.
just something about it.
Oh, my goodness. Well, was there anything else that you played, Alejandro?
No, what about you?
I don't think I really played too much. I was still trying to get over the sickness and everything. I played I didn't even play the new season of Rainbow Six Siege that came out yesterday
That even
either.
came out,
Man,
god damn it. So much coming out at time.
a lot of it. I think actually I did want to mention one thing. I do believe that Modern Warfare timed that very specifically
Hmm.
and either found out like the inner details of when Siege was going to be putting their season out and was like, we're going to undercut the heck out of this so bad because so many people are playing the new Warzone mode. I highly doubt as nearly as many people jumped in on the new season of Rainbow Six.
I tell you, I didn't even know it came out.
Yeah, because they at least not when it's outside of like the realm of influence for the Siege players, nobody else really hears about any of it. It's
Hmm.
really like with once you're in this circle, you can hear it from a lot of different directions. Like
Hmm.
I'll have my finger on the pulse of like two or three different people that do news for it. They talk about like details, they break down the stats of everything. It's like a whole deal. And it blows my mind how intricate it is, but and once you're outside of that, you really don't hear anything about it outside of like their almost always 75% off sales and free
Hmm.
weekends and stuff to get new players in.
Which is strange because for example, Destiny, that's how I usually felt, that once you were like, you had your finger on the pulse, it always
Hmm.
felt like you were in that silo community. But it
Hmm.
always feels that every time that they announce something, everyone knows about it. Like, you knew about the new season yet last week, and I didn't even tell you
Right.
about it.
I
So,
I randomly found that on Google, so I guess they must do a lot more with the mainstream, like because it's an MMO. I guess they really need that community. They really need that wide net cast and as wide as they can get, the more opportunity they're going to have different kind of players come in. But I think Siege, especially at this point since it came out in 2015 originally,
mhm.
they are fully set in like the kind of player that they want and they're fine with not reaching too far as long as they get that like, hey, so you've probably been playing Modern Warfare for several years now, you need something that's more of a challenge, don't you? And that's like kind of the idea for them probably.
But
um
here's the thing, like, Siege is huge. Like,
it
them
is.
doing it that way, they amass like 30 million players. So,
Exactly.
so
But
yeah,
I
so,
think they want to do that because they used to do the wide net situation, and so many people bought it when it came out, if you remember, and then they immediately traded it in after like
mhm.
a week because they thought that the terrorist
It
hunt was
wasn't very good.
supposed to be the big deal or there was going to be some kind of campaign. But I guess it wasn't clearly enough expressed that it was supposed to be just about the multiplayer competition aspect.
They actually were very clear that it was a multiplayer thing, and they said that for PvE players, there was a terrorist hunt mode. So,
Right, but
and
I
I
think a
remember
lot of
back in
people
2015.
overshot that idea, because, like, you think, "Oh, terrorist hunt, that sounds fun. You gotta, like, hunt down all the, computer players hiding in this area," and then people realized it was just really bare bones.
Mhm.
Um,
No, but even the multiplayer was very bare bones. A lot of
it
people were like,
was, yeah.
"Why were they charging $60 for this thing that felt more like a free to play game?" So,
Mm.
but that was in 2015, and they really turned that ship around. So,
They either had a very good vision for what that game was supposed to become, or they flew by the seat of their pants and really hit the right
but that's
buttons and
been
numbers.
Ubisoft literally this generation with all their service games.
True.
Like Ubisoft is one of the best ones when it comes to like really investing in the games that they put out. That they really are not the same product that they launched. Like if you're playing them right now. So
Very true.
so yeah. So Paul, anything else that you've been watching or playing before we move on?
That I believe that is everything for right now. I watched a couple of Superman animated movies, like The Death
Hmm.
of Superman, which that was fun. But I don't want to get too much into that. We got some meat that we got to talk about now.
Exactly, because this is a huge follow up from last week's. Uh,
Yeah,
Paul press X4.
some news.
Dun,
So,
dun, dun, dun.
oh boy,
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, our issue today is the official cancellation of E3 2020.
Hey, Paul, remember last week when they said that, yeah, yeah, E3 is still going ahead as usual.
Yep,
And we said,
they were
that's not
trying
going to
to.
last.
Yep. I think y'all can play that back on the recording if y'all want to go find episode. What was it?
Eight.
8? No,
Hmm.
7. We're
Eight.
on 8.
No, no, it was eight
It was?
last week.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Our
we said
thing
eight.
says episode 8 still. Uh,
Oh.
so we can change that. So yeah, if you look back at episode 8, you will hear us specifically say that we did not believe that like it was only a matter of time that E3 was going to have to either shut down
Hmm.
because they're losing all this potential for actually doing anything. And sure enough, as of last night, somebody finally broke the news that E3 was done for after um, they made the prediction that it was actually going to be announced this morning, but it
Hmm.
was announced last night.
Yeah.
And it's gone, boys.
Yeah, it's more like the official statement of the electronic associations, the ESA.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to make like an official statement this morning, but like multiple sources confirmed that last night that
Mm,
the ESA was telling their members to cancel their plans, to cancel their flights, and all of that because it wasn't happening. And
fair.
remember when I remember last week it was because of the GDC cancellation and how like GDC is actually very important for like the console manufacturers to give the full details
Correct.
of what the console's final SKUs were gonna be, or kind of like the techniques for development, all that.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking of developers not having that heading into E3 was like that just sounds like a disaster. So, so now that those worries were borne out because uh, now E3 is no more. Can you believe that? That our
That
second
blows my mind.
episode, we were talking how E3 was screwed when Sony left again,
Yeah, that's true.
and
Um, man,
just
that we called it, I guess.
yeah, 7 weeks
I
later,
wish I was
there,
wrong. That's what I
yeah,
wish.
it
Um,
was. So,
man,
but the thing is that this is all just one more victim of the coronavirus. It just seems the coronavirus is wrecking everything in the world right now,
at
which
least they're
is
blaming it on that, but
oh yeah, but because if you see every industry is like trembling under fear of the coronavirus,
mhm,
and I know recently there was a report that now there's 1,000 confirmed coronavirus cases in the U.S.
mhm,
So I feel that yeah, I think it's getting close to pandemic status.
mhm.
So and people are being very, very careful about that. So no,
Which I
literally,
will
like in my
say,
yeah,
at
literally,
least,
in my home country, we had a group of people coming from Spain, and they're all quarantined right now. They're gonna be quarantined for
jeez,
30 days before they're released into society.
oh my
It's
goodness.
like how soon before this becomes a Last of Us situation, Paul?
Well, I think it's going to be entirely based on the fear mongering of the people more so than the infectiousness and lethalness of the virus. Because there has been people all over the place buying up toilet paper. I don't
Yes,
know why that even matters, but they've
right.
also been buying hand sanitizer and soap.
Mhm.
I will say I'm glad that there's finally a reason for people to start washing their hands correctly.
Right.
Because
People
I've seen
can be
too many
finally
people.
healthy again.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe we'll build that habit up at least. And then we've also known that the infectiousness in China is leveling off. There's
Hmm.
more people that have recovered from the virus than have actually died from it.
Hmm.
And I
I
think it's
wouldn't
like a
call it
good night.
recovered, but they've been more controlled. They haven't died because
Oh, that they said
there's so
like
much here.
recovered, like they're getting better.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's like it's running its course because it really is. It's just a super powerful flu, and there's still way more people dying from the flu
Mhm.
than anything of this kind of nature.
Yeah.
And I
And I
think
feel
it's
the
just
difference
people
is
too
because there's
afraid.
flu vaccines. Like vaccines for those do exist, while for the coronavirus they don't yet. I think that's why there's more fear mongering over it
That's
because
true.
there's no, yeah, because they're still trying
But
to
even
develop
then,
it here.
like with the like, there's still more people dying from the regular flu, even with the virus, the vaccines that they take, because sometimes it's different strains of the flu. Sometimes they're just too weak, which that's exactly what's happening. The only people that are really dying from this are either really old or they're
Hmm.
really young and they don't have the right immune system for it.
Exactly, or especially or the frail immune system for like elderly people are
Hmm.
the ones that are more in danger.
Right.
But
So in
but
any case, it's causing a lot of trouble, and people are canceling everything. Like for instance, one of my big sources of money, I've been doing announcing for a management company for like 5K and 10K runs,
hmm.
and the mayor of I think it was New Orleans, just canceled all events for St. Patrick's Day weekend, including all the parades and the
Hmm.
run that I was going to do, and that was going to be like a full week's worth of work right there that I was going to get for that job, and that just no longer exists now
Hmm.
because the mayor took it upon himself to shut down the whole system.
Yeah. Look, I don't begrudge that. Like, I'm glad that people are actually taking very seriously that safety first. Because remember when Sony pulled out of PAX and both GDC, at first I was like, my thing was like, they're just using this as a cover.
Hmm.
Because they probably don't have things ready to show and they're hiding behind it. But then everyone started doing it, and I'm like, okay, maybe not. so, so and it was funny. PAX was in Massachusetts, and they just confirmed 51 new cases there. So I'm like, okay, so Sony has some good foresight.
Mm.
So yeah, it's yeah, this virus is just wrecking everything. But my thing with E3 2020 being canceled is that I really do feel this is now finally the true end of E3 because now companies they have games to announce, and they're still
Hmm.
gonna announce them.
Hmm.
And then I bet you top dollar, as we were talking in our chat with PJ, that that they're all gonna be doing direct style presentations.
Hmm.
And I bet you top dollar they're gonna see how much cheaper doing that kind of presentation is, and do that at their own time to where they can control the message. When they see that, how could they go back to spending so much money to go to a trade show like E3?
As
So
long as
like,
it works for the indie crew, that's all
mhm,
I can think of is if they don't have the resources,
exactly.
because that gives them a lot of exposure. There's a lot of people watching, but
But
if not, they might not be able to pull that
indies
off.
have better shots usually at PAX than at E3. At E3, people are looking for like the big games.
That's true.
So I think the best thing that could happen to these indies is for either Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo really partnering with them to give them airtime at their whatever presentations they do.
Mm.
So that's like the only way that I can see indies surviving the huge change that this will be. And what the one thing is of like I think the big downside of this is that we're losing our Super Bowl. I always consider E3 the gaming Super Bowl.
Mm,
Like those 1 to 2 days where you're watching the conferences and seeing who
yeah.
won and the big announcements and such. But you know what I was thinking? How do we usually watch E3?
Well, it used to be on cable TV, and
I
then
would
we
even
started
say live
watching it
streams.
online.
I would say
Well,
live
yeah,
streams. Live
now it's on
streams
live
from the
streams.
comfort of our home. We were never at the events that they were pulling those things.
Hmm.
So if they really double down and meaty up their video presentations and they all get together and be like, in this week we are all having this, I feel that's not going to be as huge a change as we may think, because of the way a lot of people consume these things. So, but man, just for a little post-mortem, Paul, what were your favorite E3 memories?
Well, that's going to be a little tricky because I have a lot of jumbled memories, both in
But throw them.
general.
I may
So,
recognize them.
well, let me think. If I can think of anything off the top of my head, I do remember that weird moment where they brought the Ghost of Tsushima like flute
Flute.
thing out there. They had Usher for
Uh
Microsoft.
huh.
Of course, Keanu Reeves coming out for
Mm-hmm.
Cyberpunk blew my
Yeah.
freaking mind.
Yes.
Halo 3, they had like
The
a
trailer. Mhm.
warthog show up.
Uh,
um if I was remember, there was like one thing that they just had like a warthog sitting out there. There was a time when they were announcing Forza and they just brought down like a giant, really fancy blue car from the ceiling. um
yeah,
that
the Forza thing, but the Warthog thing, it's not an E3 conference from what I'm reading here.
Is it
That was
not
never,
okay?
yeah, that was
See, I
never there.
told you all my memories are
Uh,
jumbled.
yes.
um Let me think, if there was something else that I was thinking off the top of my head. I remember when Sunset Overdrive was announced. That was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of fun because it was
2013.
disguised as like a basic military shooter at first, and then the main character like busts in, like
Mm-hmm.
doing the mask level ridiculous stuff going on.
Hmm.
When Devil May Cry 5 was announced, of course, that
Yeah,
like
2019.
people lost their minds. It's because one of the things that I loved the most was even when they would play the trailer on the stream, you could hear the audience's reaction. And that was one of the best things because when you'd have stuff go on, you could lose your mind with the audience while they're cheering.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I don't know if it was at E3, but when did they do that tech demo for Final Fantasy VII? The re-
Um, so there was the E3 2005 one, but that wasn't a live stream. The one where people lost their mind was the reveal of the remake on 2015.
No, I'm thinking like because it was they still like went crazy because they saw the new opening or whatever for this non-existent game. I remembered that. Even there's a couple times where they showed something. It was like this is what Zelda would look like on the Wii U, and they
Mm-hmm.
made that like full CG trailer, and people thought it was like an Ocarina of Time remaster. And then they said, no, there's nothing going on with that. We just
Yeah,
wanted to
that
show
was
it.
E3 2001. It's no, no, it was actually
How do
something
you
called
know
Space
this
World, where they did like a super realistic Zelda looking
stuff?
thing
Yeah, yeah.
that ended up being the art style for Twilight Princess. That was
Yeah.
like the tech demo for the GameCube, and then and the coming E3 they announced Wind Waker, and people were devastated.
Oh no, I'm not thinking of that. I was thinking like it was specifically a Wii U thing.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah,
I
it was
think the Wii
great.
U thing that you're remembering is the one where it was Eiji Onuma mentioning that they had like the art style ready for their new Zelda, and it was behind it, and then it immediately merged into like a gameplay trailer where you can
Hmm,
actually see it in movement. It was actually really cool.
really?
Yeah,
I don't remember that at all. It was like it was the Ocarina of Time Link, and Navi was there, and he was fighting something. I don't even remember
a
what it
spider.
was.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, that was when the Wii U was like early on. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm not crazy. Because I don't remember there being actual gameplay of that. So,
no, the one I told you is for Breath of the Wild in 2014.
oh no, yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
the Ocarina of Time one was 2011.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Mhm.
But yeah, the Breath of the Wild trailer that like showed everything was that was amazing as well that I was remembering. Because at first I was like, oh yeah, okay, because I was one of those people that really wasn't gonna buy the Switch, wasn't gonna buy the Breath of the Wild. And I was like, there's nothing they could do to convince me to. buy this game, and that trailer single-handedly made me go, "All right, I have about $300. I'm gonna buy this day one."
Yeah, it was really hype. My favorite memories are there's a couple bad ones that are always funny. E3 2006 for Sony, uh, giant enemy crab. Have you heard of that?
Giant enemy crab.
Yeah, so they were demoing this game Genji Days of the Blade, that they were saying that we work hand in hand with a lot of people that have worked with samurais for it to be a really authentic war experience of that era. And then and then a giant enemy crab dropped, and they're like, and there's a giant enemy crab.
Oh my god.
You should look that up. It's amazing. Yeah, crab. There was the Wii Music from E3 2008,
Hmm.
that it was someone like waggling their Wiimotes like if they were playing drums. It's it's so yeah. So, and then there also Sony E3 2012, where they dedicated like 20 minutes to Wonder Book. It was like something called Book of Spells. It was like this supposedly Harry Potter like thing where they showed like a long demo of like a woman sitting in the floor with an open book and their move one that wasn't working.
Oh, I do remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, on E3 2012. But then I remember the really cool the cool E3 memories. Watching the original Modern Warfare demo for the first time, that it was like the sniper level, the Halo
Mhm.
3 trailer, the original Last of Us demo that literally had the developer not say a single word. The demo just started and the developer was like literally playing in the shadows as he was just playing through the whole demo. And then when he ended that demo, he lifted his hand and dropped the controller like it was a mic drop and just walked away. Yes, it was
Man,
so
I wish I could remember that. Jeez.
yeah, that was the 2012 one. E3 2013 when Sony dismantled Xbox. Uh,
Mm.
when they
True.
were like, yeah, there's not gonna be restrictions in use games. There's not gonna be always online, and then the 399 sucker punch, like,
Mhm.
and that was when you heard a lot of people cheering. Everyone,
Yep.
when it was like, it's not gonna be always online, they're like, ah, yeah. Or even and then E3, the Sony 2015 one, where they announced this Final Fantasy VII remake when the Last Guardian finally reappeared
Oh yeah.
forever, and then also they announced the Shenmue 3
Mhm.
Kickstarter, because Shenmue 3 had become like vaporware for so long. People had been waiting for a third game of that since like 2001.
Mhm.
So there's that shot of a fan like grabbing his face, crying as he's standing, and the camera and then the camera like panning at it. Yeah. And then my
Man.
probably my favorite E3 ever was Sony 2016, which was the one with the orchestra when when they announced God of War, Days
Oh
Gone,
yeah.
Death Stranding with Kojima like walking down like a light panel, like it was like floating thing.
Mm.
And they also announced Spider Man. Yeah,
Man, I remember that God of War announcement because nobody knew what it was at
uh-huh.
first.
Yeah, because
And
the music just started,
yeah. And
but it sounded like God of War because it had like kind of like those ooh, you know,
right.
that's so it was like when it started, it's like, wait, are they announcing a God of War? Because God of War had been dormant for a while
Mhm.
uh after Ascension. And then
And man.
when then you see Atreus playing with the toys,
Uh-huh.
and then he just goes and says, and you hear boy, and he was like, "We're going hunting.
And he
I'm
comes
hungry."
out
He
of the
steps out of the
shadows.
shadow. I
Oh.
remember, yeah, it was so cool. And then you see the perspective is like over the shoulder. You're like, "Holy
Mhm.
crap! This looks like The Last of Us."
Mhm.
Yeah, and God,
And a lot of people were really worried about the speed of it because it looked a lot slower,
mhm.
and I was blown away by like what they did. I think they showed the troll battle, if I was
Yeah,
remembering right,
uh-huh.
and
It
that
was
was awesome.
in the game. The troll battle ended up being at a different place,
Right.
but the idea was similar. But
Hmm.
that game looked incredibly polished at that time. I remember
Yeah.
it blew my mind.
And I
But
think I remember watching that the documentary, and they said like for what they had, I think that was all they had that was
mhm,
finished. Like they only worked on that trailer.
yes,
and then they
But
just built the whole game after.
but the thing is, it wasn't a trailer; it was a playable demo. You can see
Well, yeah,
Cory
you're
Barlog,
right.
the director, because whenever they show the demo, it like split into this four different screens where you can see the
Hmm.
gameplay, the audience as a tiny screen with Cory Barlog playing, uh, and also the orchestra. And you're like, oh crap, they're like scoring this thing as it was live.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, so yeah, and also Days Gone was revealed that immediately after, and
Mm,
I
that
remember not
was
being
an
that
interesting one.
impressed when I
I
saw
was
it.
impressed more with like the sheer volume of the zombies, but yeah, I like remember when he was talking about the motorcycle and you were just losing gas by like a gallon a second,
Mhm.
and he had to like run around pick up more gas for it, and then he got clotheslined by the other crew, and I was like, this is doesn't seem fun.
And
Um,
that was 2017 because the 2016 was the steel mill thing with like the thousand
oh,
zombies.
you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah, because
That
in the
was more
2017,
interesting, I'd say.
yeah, because that's where you see like the huge amount of zombies because like, oh
Hmm.
dang, that's a lot of zombies.
Right.
So-
And
but
then we
yeah,
waited for so long.
yeah, so man, we probably will not have those moments again because it's just gonna be direct stuff.
Not for that level of hype, I don't think. Unless we watch like reaction videos
Hmm.
or like a crew. Like there's some YouTubers that do really well with like they'll gather up three or four friends and they'll all sit there and watch it. So then it's like it kind of feels like that kind of hype, especially if it's a game that they're looking forward to. And but besides that, yeah, we're never gonna get that huge grouping. I don't think. Like they might try to come back next year and do something, but it's not gonna be the same.
So my thing is that the conference that were always the most hype were the Sony ones, if I'm perfectly honest. Like, I've always wanted Microsoft to do better, and I feel when with the kind of third party games that they always get, they're like, oh, they had a huge selection of games, but think about all the memories that we just mentioned. It's the
Mm-hmm.
Sony ones, and I don't feel Sony wants to do a conference anymore. They just
No.
don't. They feel like they're above this anymore. Like they're above this, and they'd rather just do their state of plays, which have been okay. They haven't been like they haven't had huge announcements in those, or even like the big things. They kind of got spoiled ahead of time, kind of like the for like the when they redebuted Final Fantasy VII at a state of play last week. No, last year. Square Enix said something like, "Hey, you should tune into this stuff. There may be something really important, something like this." So you're like, you kidding? And then as soon as the state of play happens, there's like this blue line that has like the sound of the menu. So you're like, oh, Final Fantasy. And then at the very
Right.
end, it's like, oh, cool, Final Fantasy is back again. And then the state of play from last December, the one that had Resident Evil 3, the whole
Yeah.
art leaked like a week or two before. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
And then
I
it also
feel like
started. It's like,
right after the Resident Evil 2 remake, though, like everybody was saying, like, "Oh yeah, they're making a third one after this." It was like just
the
assumed,
worst, the worst kept secret.
right? It was like, "Oh
Probably
yeah,
the only
they already
surprise
made
is
it."
how quick it was. That's
Hmm.
like the only thing.
It's like they made both of them at the same time.
Yeah, and it makes sense because they saw it in their internal test that it was actually really good.
That's
So
true,
and their internal tests were correct. So and we're like 3 weeks away from that one now. Can you believe that?
right? And I told myself I'm not going to buy it day one, but we'll
Mhm.
see how that plays out.
Exactly. No, same here because remember, Final Fantasy is the week after, and I'm
Exactly.
still more
I'm
excited
like,
for
I
that.
can wait a week to get this Final Fantasy in my system.
Exactly, because we already got our fill with Resident Evil 2 last year. We haven't
Hmm.
had this kind of Final Fantasy like
Right.
what we tried with that demo last week. So I think that's why that's more important right now. So
Hmm.
and considering that you can buy Resident Evil 2 in so many sales that are like $20, I'm pretty sure that thing will go cheap eventually
Oh
sometime this
yeah.
year. So
And I mean, I already have it anyway, so
exactly. So
no troubles.
but yeah, so E3 we had some good memories, but too bad coronavirus brought your death sooner than we would expect it because I don't think E3 as we knew is gonna ever recover. Like it's just not. Like companies are gonna see how
Yeah.
much cheaper it is to just do their own thing online, and considering that the rising cost of video games that are gonna happen again with when PS5 and Xbox Series X finally launches,
Hmm.
like they will try to save pennies. So, so but
True
yeah,
that.
E3, R.I.P.
Well,
But Paul,
long live
those were not,
E3.
and that was basically our topic of the show. Also, so we're doubling
But
that on
we
that.
still
But
got some pretty decent news going on.
exactly, especially this big one. Reggie Fils-Aimé, the former Nintendo of America president, joins GameStop board of directors.
Which, what the heck, Reggie? Like, I
Yeah,
get it trying to play the game of business on hard mode, but dang.
yeah. And what's funny is that that same day, remember that I posted the picture that the stock price of GameStop was
Right?
like at an all-time
It's like
low.
$3 now.
Yeah, I think it was. I don't even remember. It was just bad.
Hmm.
But as we're kind of discussing with PJ, also like Reggie has a history of turning businesses around. He
Yeah.
turned around Pizza Hut, and Pizza Hut is
Which
still
I
climbing.
forgot he even did that,
Yeah,
honestly.
exactly. So, and being in a board of directors, he's not there in the day and date. They just like work in the macro. And
Hmm.
I feel his statement that he says that for the sake of variety and for the sake of like the industry, you kind of need a healthy GameStop. I'm like,
Yes.
okay, I feel him at least being in the board of directors. There's a level of competency
Hmm.
from this man that I trust more than current GameStop leadership, especially with the constant erosion of GameStop stores this year that have been consumed by that antimatter wave.
Hmm.
so, so
This is basically Kitchen Nightmares video game edition, and he is probably like one of the few people I think is competent enough and big name enough
mhm,
to actually like pull the weight that he would need to like start saying all of these crazy things that would like they'd actually listen to, you know?
mhm,
Because anybody else, I feel like they'd get somebody in that knew what they were saying. He would make all these actual statements that would help, and they'd be like, "All right, well, we think we got what we're doing, but thanks for the input." But like with Reggie, I think that he would actually know, both from working in the industry for so long and knowing exactly what they need, and then also he's so in touch with the community on
mhm,
like his Twitter and stuff, and he actually like responds to people, that I think he's just enough like involved with the consumer that he could actually like bring things to the board of directors, say, hey, maybe we don't do this practice anymore, maybe we should do
mhm.
more of this and stuff like that, you know.
Exactly. And Nintendo has always been the more quote unquote pro fans of like the companies when they were
Exactly.
there. Like, even though I feel like sometimes their business practices are asinine, kind of like how they never drop the price of their games and their hardware is extremely expensive,
Hmm.
like $80 still for like a pair of Joy-Cons.
And
It's
never making enough for everybody when they release new games.
exactly. It always like they call it the blue ocean strategy, where they intentionally they
Like
how can I
lower
say it?
supply for raising
Exactly.
demand.
They intentionally like constrain their supply to create more demand.
Hmm.
So
Which is just crazy how they do that, and that's like textbook like greedy practices that we learned in business school, but it
exactly,
works so well for them because it's
exactly.
it's a very valid tactic.
But it didn't work for them in the Wii U. But that was
You
because
are
the Wii U was
correct.
terrible. So
Right, there was just not enough games for it. If they had a lot of games like with the Switch and then they cut the supply,
mhm,
absolutely they would have just
exactly.
bankrolled
Yeah, the
everything.
Wii U was too early. So
Mhm.
that console was just a mistake. How it just gone from Wii straight to Switch, it would have been like uh smooth sailing for it. But I feel the Nintendo needed that Wii U
It
failure.
needed it. Yeah, I was gonna say it needed both the failure and the prototype, if like method, because if you look at it, the Switch is just like the Wii U panel thing
Hmm.
that you used, but it was just like a prototype of it. Like it didn't have all the tech that it needed, but it was like, we're gonna step forward with this and try. And then once they realized what worked and what didn't work, that's what let them do this with the Switch.
Hmm. Exactly. And also, the Switch was the last ditch effort because people are saying that if the Switch didn't hit, because remember that was Project NX at that point,
Yeah, that's
uh,
right.
and which I thought was a cool name, the
It
NX.
was. I
And
do
then,
like the Switch though. It's all right.
do you like the name originally? Because
I know I didn't originally. Now it's grown on me.
exactly, yeah, it's finally grown on it. But I remember Switch. I'm like, but at least it wasn't like Wii. It was like a complete, finally, like getting away from that branding. So
Hmm.
like a clean
Very
break.
glad for that. I didn't think the Wii was a good idea for a
Yeah.
name, but I'm like in their language, I could get it, but for us as English speakers, it's a much different
But it
response
wasn't
to
even
that
their
word.
name. We is French, and they're a Japanese
Well,
company.
Frank, what was I about to say? I mean, it's definitely with like this Japanese spelling of things with the e, the hard e of the I, but um, they definitely did their best with that
Exactly.
one, and
Hey,
I
and
don't
to be
think
fair, the Wii was a huge success at the beginning, and it sold 100 million
it was.
units.
The Wii
And
ended up being great, and it pioneered motion controls across the board.
yeah, and
You could almost say that VR is where it is because the Wii stepped forward when it did.
exactly because of the Wii, Sony also went into the market with the Move, and even though it was a huge failure at the beginning, the fact that they still had the technology for VR,
Yes,
they were able to find like a new lease in life. But even though they need a new controller right now, because these
right.
things are old. The fact that their USB charges cables are like from they're two generations behind USB C tells you
Hmm.
everything.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. All throughout this entire show, I've been incredibly pessimistic of GameStop, and I've been like chronicling like their constant death and always shoving it to your throat down your
yeah,
throat. So, but this is the first time that I'm like, you know what? I see a glimmer of hope because there's someone that knows their stuff.
yeah.
That's
Hmm.
finally gonna be in a position of power. That
Right.
makes it because so, and he commands that kind of respect. So,
Hmm.
and the thing is that this will be a win-win for Reggie either way. If GameStop still dies even under him, people are just gonna be like, "Yeah, well, the thing was already on that spiral anyway. There's nothing Reggie could have done." And then if they turn it around, then he's gonna be like, "Look, he did it
That
again."
will
So,
literally be immortalized
exactly,
forever if he can turn around GameStop.
exactly. so, and finally, I'm like, "Okay, GameStop, let's see if this actually works for you." So,
Hmm.
and in adjacent news that are also Nintendo thing as a
Yes.
follow up from last week's rant. Remember?
Yep.
So via Jeff Grubb at VentureBeat, apparently there are two Nintendo Directs
Not one,
allegedly coming soon.
but two.
So yeah, one is supposedly gonna be on March 18th, which is supposed to be like an indie showcase, and that makes sense because that week would have been GDC,
Hmm.
and they always had like an indie showcase at GDC. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That the GDC is no longer there, but they're still gonna make. They'll still do a showcase for the indies, which is what we're talking about with the E3 thing. That
Yep.
the way indies will survive is for the big three to showcase them. So March 18th is where supposedly that the showcase will happen, and then 8 days later at True Direct, the one that will give us the entire slate for 2020, or at least an idea, that happens on March 26th. Paul, when does Animal Crossing ship?
6 days before that, on March 20th.
What did I freaking tell you?
You said it. You said it
What
was
did I
going to be
freaking tell
right
you?
after Animal Crossing drops. Give
Yeah,
people a couple of days to get it, and then immediately tell them everything else that Nintendo's planning on doing to blow
man,
them out of the
Nintendo
water.
has balls to like
They do.
literally hinge everyone's hunger for like a new game on this freaking Animal Crossing game
Because they
for
need
them to then
something.
afterwards be like, yeah, we'll now announce everything.
Like, it's the fact that somebody like me who doesn't even think about wanting to buy an Animal Crossing ever, like briefly considered it for like 3 seconds. The fact that I did that means that they convinced so many people to
Hmm.
go out and buy Animal Crossing because there's nothing left, and nobody else really keeps their eye on when these Nintendo Directs come out. They just kind of like, oh hey, a new Nintendo thing came out. Let's go see what that's
Hmm.
all about.
Exactly.
So they're gonna buy this, they're gonna start playing, and then in 6 days, they're gonna find out the rest of, presumably, the rest of what Nintendo actually has to offer. Which, please God, tell me they're gonna have some Breath of the Wild too. I know it probably won't matter and it
Hmm.
won't be there, but I really wanna, I really wanna have that happen.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. But the thing, but yeah, but the thing is that I feel Animal Crossing has always sold well, so I don't understand why they put all their eggs in this basket for Animal Crossing for this entire quarter.
I
Like,
don't think it's gonna be like really a desperation move. I think they just wanted to try a marketing tactic out
mhm.
because Animal Crossing like appeals to a specific kind of fan, and I think they wanted to break into like another what's the word another environment as well, because there's going to be just two things happening. Either they're buying Doom or they're buying Animal Crossing, and I
And
think
there's
Nintendo just
and
wanted to
there's
get that.
no overlap there. Doom and Animal Crossing are so different games.
And they're on different systems too. I don't think they have Doom Eternal on the Switch.
It's gonna be on Switch. I don't know if
It
they
is?
unday it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
because the original eventually made it to Switch, which was
Right.
crazy.
But that
But
was
they were
like
able to make
several
it
years
work.
later, I think. Oh no, just 2017, I think.
Exactly. It was a year later.
Yeah, okay.
So
But still, I'm still imagining that they just want to get a few people that have a Switch, because a lot of people bought a Switch for just like two or three games, and I think it's like, hey, guys, don't you like? There hasn't been a lot going on in a while. Don't you want something nice and relaxing? You can go pick up some collect bugs. You can go far. You can go collect things. You can help your buddies out in the neighborhood and run the place. And like the few people that are normally on the fence, I think would be willing to actually purchase that because there's not anything else supposedly coming. And that's what they've been playing at them with, and now they're going to hit them over the head 6 days later, supposedly, with all this new stuff.
exactly. So I'm glad that my tinfoil hat theory panned out.
You were holding to that for a while. You were telling us almost like every 2 or 3 days, like, I'm telling you, they're gonna reveal something right after Animal Crossing comes out. And at first, I was like, nah, maybe, but I don't really care. And then I was like, you know what? That's actually that makes sense, you know.
It's just
And
because it just made sense considering the previous years they had already said something by January or early February or by
right.
early March. Like early March 2018 is when they announced Smash at the end of that direct.
Oh wow,
It
yeah.
was like the Inkling when they had like the Inklings paint the thing and then it got
hmm
all dark
And the
and just like
fire showed up.
exactly. So uh
Man, I forgot about that.
yeah,
That
that
was.
was last week, 2 years ago.
hmm
That because I was during the anniversary of that, so I'm like, huh. So and then I remember reading like a comment saying like, "Don't expect much other than Animal Crossing for this quarter." So
hmm
they really stuck to their guns.
I really
Yeah.
did.
But also, let's not forget that games like Metroid Prime 4 had to be restarted development. So
I
maybe that's what
forgot about that,
happened. That
honestly.
they finally ran into like development issues, so they kind of had to take an L here. But
Which really doesn't happen often with them.
yeah, exactly. So they have had a couple like false starts back in the Wii era. I remember. Uh,
Yeah,
Project Hammer never came out. A game where you had like a big dude with a big hammer that was for Wii, and
oh
then that
jeez,
never
I forgot
that
about
never came
that.
out. So, so yeah, but yeah,
Jeez.
finally we'll
Yeah,
have a reveal of some sort. I kind of just wanted some announcements at this point, especially because
very true.
Sony will continue their perpetual silence. Well, they
Mhm.
kind of broke it a little bit recently with something that's big for you, Ghost of Tsushima,
Yes, they did,
June
and I
26th.
am very ready for that.
Yeah.
I think I just saw the trailer itself. I heard about the release date and then found
Mhm.
out after the fact that there was actually a new trailer for it.
Oh yeah, they announced
And
it with a 3 minute trailer that I didn't
right,
watch. I'm intentionally
um,
not watching it.
really,
Yeah,
it doesn't reveal too much. Honestly, it's honestly the trailer they showed before that showed more. I think.
I'm more at the point where if I know that I'm gonna buy a game, if I'm already sold, I don't need to see anything. I want to try that technique right now.
Hmm,
That I'm not gonna watch any of it. Like at this point,
okay.
yeah, because
I
I
respect
want.
it
Yeah,
because I wish I could do that, but if it's like if I'm what's the word? If I'm passionate about whatever's coming out enough, I will start to eat up literally every piece of media that I can find. I will rewatch footage if it has more audio on it that somebody's talking over it or something. I will find everything that I can, and oftentimes I used to burn myself out on it. That was my issue. Um, and then I finally figured out kind of like a happy medium where like I'll watch whatever just came out, I'll speculate on it, I'll talk with my buddies, and then I'll shut myself off.
hmm
Like socially at least, I'll like maybe go look at the trailer again here and there, like with Breath of the Wild when that was coming out.
hmm
But I have to like put it out of my mind because usually the game's not coming out for like
hmm
the rest of the year. and
Yeah,
it'll
to
just
me,
be suffering
exactly.
until it
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
out.
To me, it's like the first trailer, maybe the second, but the first two trailers is enough for me. So,
Hmm.
like the original reveal that happened at Paris Games Week 2017, then
Yeah.
the demo at E3 2018, and then the trailer from the Game Awards because I was already watching the Game Awards
Hmm.
happened. That was enough for me. That was like, yep, that's I'm in. I don't need to watch anymore, especially since it's relatively close. What surprises me is how close it is from The Last of Us Part 2.
True.
May 29th. And less than a month later, Ghost of Tsushima.
Huh. I kind of forgot that's when
Yeah,
Last of Us
it
comes
makes me
out, to be
wonder.
honest.
And because I saw it kind of a bit floating, like,
Hmm.
Last of Us, as big as the first game was, is gonna be equally big.
Right.
So it feels like Ghost of Tsushima may be buried.
Mm. I don't think it will personally, because it's not like it's a week like some things with Battleborn. If you remember all that
Mhm.
nonsense, it came out between Call of Duty and
Oh no, 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 no,
um,
no. Battleborn came 2 weeks before Overwatch. Call of Duty did.
oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
What was the thing that they shot themselves in the foot on it that came between Call of Duty and Battlefield?
No, that was Titanfall 2.
That's what it was. Okay, I got them mixed up. But yes, Battleborn and Overwatch, and then Titanfall 2 and Battlefield and Call of Duty. Um, yes, that I don't think it's going to be nearly as bad as that because yes, people will buy for sure Last of Us 2 when that comes out, but I firmly believe, especially for a game like Last of Us, unless it has a lot more material,
They say
um
it's their biggest game.
geez, really?
Yeah,
Frick.
the biggest game
why,
they've ever made.
why you got to throw these monkey wrenches into my plan, man? I'm trying to survive out here. Um Gosh, so yeah, I guess I still imagine that a month, almost a month, is enough time for people to justify a second purchase. So I think they're going to get Last of Us, and then they'll buy Ghost of Tsushima. If
Yeah.
not the day of, they'll probably wait a week,
Mhm.
realize that it's an amazing game. I'm praying,
Mhm.
and then they'll go out and buy it, and then
Yeah.
bam.
Yeah, my thing is that remember, Ghost of Tsushima is releasing in the shadow of the sequel of what a lot of people are calling the best game of the decade, a game
Yeah.
that sold like 20 million copies. So, and it's an established franchise
Don't
compared
ruin
to
this
like a
for
new
me,
IP.
Alejandro. Okay.
So, I think that the thing that I'm reading about this is that I think this makes it clear as day we're not gonna hear anything about PS5 until probably July.
You're not wrong, actually. I
Yeah,
think they're gonna let these games come out, and then they may say that. Or I'm hoping that maybe like they were planning something for E3, like around the time of E3,
um, I don't
and
think so because I feel like of all the companies, like because Sony has been so successful with PS4 that they have earned the kind of the benefit of the doubt, quote unquote, that they have enough games to carry them. Like Microsoft had to say something because they had nothing.
you're
Like,
not wrong,
or, yeah,
actually.
yeah, Ori came out this week. What
Hmm.
else is coming out big from them other than like the Ninja Theory Blade multiplayer game that's I think later this month that people are not talking about?
Hmm.
Halo in, then Wastelanders 3, which is like a like a RPG thing.
Oh yeah, I have
Yeah,
heard
from
of that
like the In Exile people, and then
one. Hmm.
Halo Infinite whenever the Xbox Series X launches.
Right,
Look
which at
like
least we know that's coming out this year.
exactly,
Um,
yeah, because they're still committed despite the coronavirus like shutting Foxconn for a while.
mhm.
So, uh, so I feel like and Sony had all these games aligned like this week also Neo 2, which is an exclusive for them, came out. Uh,
Wait
Final
for
Fantasy is an
Microsoft.
exclusive for them, comes out in April. Iron Man
Oh, I
VR
was talking
and
about PS4. Okay,
exactly,
I didn't realize we jumped over to Sony suddenly.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, and Iron Man VR and Last of Us Part 2 on May, and
yeah.
and and now Ghost of Tsushima in June. They're covered, so they're like, yeah, their games can carry them, and then once they've emptied the barrel, they have to reload. So and then yeah, and I feel, you know what I'm thinking? I think they're trying to pull an Apple,
What are you thinking?
like
What do you mean?
um, reveal is short, like short reveal and short wait time.
Oh, I'm following you now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because last time it was February, a PS4 announcement, and the console was revealed until November. The PS4 Pro was announced in September and released in November.
Mm.
Even though the PS4 Pro reveal was completely horrible, uh, they still tested out the short lead time. So I
Hmm.
wonder if they're thinking the same, but
Yeah,
we don't know
that's
at this
true.
point. But I feel there's more proof of that now. That now with Ghost of Tsushima being in June, they're like, yeah, they're literally just emptying the barrel. Like
Hmm.
on the PS3, moving into PS4, they still had the PS4 was revealed, and they still had games like uh, PS4 reveal on February 2013, God of War Ascension on March. Then they had Last of Us, the original, on June. Then Beyond Two Souls on October, and Gran Turismo 6 in December. That was in 2013.
You have a good memory.
So, oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Like I forget all this stuff going on.
you're
Um, but you're right.
forgetting that I control the info.
Yeah. Um, I'd imagine that they are unloading everything that they got. You know, it would be even crazier. I highly doubt it would happen. But what if right after Ghost of Tsushima, July happens, and they say, yes, like we're aware of all the stuff that's been going on. Well, guess what? October release.
It would be cool. I would love
Like,
an.
imagine if they jump the gun on Xbox, they pull all the rug out from under them because
Mhm,
all this information's been out sitting there. They come out with their information and say, like, price, and it comes out a month before
mhm.
Xbox. They will destroy Microsoft.
Exactly, especially because unlike last time, Microsoft has a lot of goodwill, lots of goodwill.
Yes.
Well, like they've been saying all the right things. Remember that whole Xbox episode we did 2 weeks ago?
Oh, yeah.
Unlike the Xbox One, that they announced so many stuff that were just bad that
Mm,
people were assuming Sony was also gonna do. At this time, they're the good guys, like announcing all these really cool pro consumers things.
yeah.
So uh, the only way for them to undercut them is to the actual reveal being so awesome that justifies their long quietness, and do that. And you know why I think they could get away with that? Because there's not much announced beyond September, and also we have an election on November.
Oh, jeez, you're right.
Yeah, so as the election nightmare has happened, I don't think they will want to release consoles around that time. They rather get ahead of them,
Hmm.
because historically, when the 2016 election happened, a lot of the games that came out like the week after the election or a couple weeks afterwards, like because of the hysteria of what happened at that election, a lot of people forgot those games came out and they undersold, like
Yeah.
Dishonored 2 and Watch Dogs 2. So,
Dang. I
so
mean,
yeah,
Watch Dogs 2 is more justified, but that is a shame about Dishonored 2. I do remember that happening because I love that game.
yeah, Dishonored 2 bombed commercially,
Jeez, did it
bombed
really?
like it didn't chart in the top 20 of the month.
Oof.
That's how bad it sold,
Holy moly.
and it
I
was a
didn't
week
even
after the
realize that.
election.
That explains that we haven't heard anything from them since
Well,
because,
they did Dishonored Death of the Outsider, which
I
they
mean,
said
they
was the
already
thing
had
that,
that planned, I
yeah,
thought.
yeah, and the Death of the Outsider thing was them closing the story. They didn't want to do a third game. They're gonna do that to just close the loop with like the
Shoot.
half game, which tells you how much Death Dishonored 2 sold, which is a shame. Dishonored 2 was amazing.
I never even realized that. That makes me sad now.
Uh,
Honestly,
that,
I didn't even like that character that they focused on for the DLC. I just never really liked her. I don't know
hmm.
why.
I
Um,
still have it installed on my console, and I haven't even played it.
Same, actually. I've kept it saved just in case I want to go back and play it, but it's on disc. So
Uh,
like I never want to get up and like go to
yeah,
my room to find the disc.
I have it installed digitally, so I just have to like literally press X to
Yeah, that
play.
was the smart move on that one. Wait, Alejandro, you said the magic code word. We have to stop the podcast now.
Yeah. No, no, it's
You
but,
fool, you've messed with the natural order. We still have things to say.
yeah, I know.
Um,
Yeah, it's it. Just so you know the how our code names are such are so defined by now.
it is. It's like a spell. You said the words, and now it's going to shut down in 30 seconds.
But yeah, so that's why I think these consoles may want to launch in a supplies constrained October to try to dodge the election,
Hmm.
because I don't think, because imagine having to compete to what with whatever that happens,
Right.
like whatever the results are, blah blah blah, whatever is like, not gonna get political, but that affected a lot in 2016. So
Hmm.
so I do wonder, maybe October will be when they launch. Why not?
It's an idea to think about because they've seen it happen in a bad way in the past,
Hmm.
and I think this is going to be an equally crazy election. I believe, no
Oh, yeah.
matter what ends up happening. But in any case, we're not here about politics. We're here about video games.
It again.
Alejandro, what
Mhm.
was the thing that just got confirmed by a music artist to be coming this year?
So a new Tony Hawk.
Yeah, of all things. I can't remember. It was the Death something. It was
Yeah,
a music
that
artist.
I'll look it up.
All
uh,
right, yeah. So while you do that, basically he said that like, hey, I made 5 new tracks for the new Tony Hawk game. Y'all get ready for this, basically. And which the Twitter account that commented on it rightfully said that it seems like an extreme non-disclosure agreement break,
yeah,
um, for sure, because that's not something you're supposed to really say.
yeah.
So maybe that wasn't correctly explained to them, but yeah,
Yeah,
to say
so
that
the
you're
death
making
set,
something
the
for an
death set,
unreleased game,
the death
a
set is called.
death set,
Mhm.
okay.
I've
Um,
never heard of that music band, but it seems like that. It sounds like the kind of rock and roll style name of a band that they would put in a Tony Hawk game.
exactly the kind of stuff. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Very just all time low. My Chemical Romance. Let's just throw all that in there. Green Day,
yeah. Why not?
and
I
yeah,
mean,
I
Kiss.
think
Kiss was in Tony Hawk Underground.
really. So
Yeah,
they've been
there was
around
a
for a
concert.
while
There was
then.
actually a concert of Kiss, and they were playing the level.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that makes sense perfectly. So man, I don't know what they're planning on doing because they put so many of those Tony Hawk games out there back in the day, and then they tried Pro Skater 5, which I'm told from the beginning had a lot of issues with
Oh
it,
no,
even
no, you're
before.
underselling. You're underselling it. That's the worst game of the generation. It's bad. Look the glitch videos. It's amazing. I can't believe they were able to release that game at $60.
Right. Well, I mean, like, even before they revealed it to the public and people realized how terrible it was, I
Mhm.
thought I remember, like, just the process of making the game was, like, really nightmarish as
Oh yeah,
well.
they literally because they had not released a Tony Hawk game since the HD Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 from 2011. The Activision
Uh,
license of Tony Hawk was expiring in 2015, so they cobbled together a game just to say that they put one out
that's what it
before
was.
before the licensing expired. Because if the license expired without them doing anything, they would have to pay a huge fine, like a
Mm,
huge fine of like, you let it run out and you didn't even do anything near the end. So that's why they cobbled it
right.
together, and you could tell it was. I think it has a 34 on Metacritic.
I'd believe it.
Yeah, so
It seemed
that's
terrible.
yeah, that's how bad it was. Like, and it's sad because you know that Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 are like, or even 3, were considered 10 out of 10 games by many people.
Right.
Yeah, they were that good, and then they got that bad with Tony Hawk Ride, Tony Hawk Shred. When I remember,
I do remember the ride. That was the that whole skateboard
yeah,
controller, wasn't it?
that didn't work.
Yeah, really.
That didn't work at all when it came out, because apparently people demoed it at E3 and it worked there. They were like, "Oh, this actually seems really cool," because that was when Activision was like super crazy with peripherals, with
Hmm.
DJ Hero, Guitar
Yeah.
Hero, and all that, and launching all those peripherals.
Man, I
That
remember that was an inventory nightmare back in the GameStop
oh, yeah,
days.
especially like when they didn't sell, right? Because they were
Hmm.
so expensive.
So many of them. Or like when Rock Band came back
Hmm.
and tried making their like new revamped version of the game or whatever, and nobody ever bought it because you needed a whole new controller, you needed all the new stuff, the new versions of it, and it was just terrible.
Exactly. And well, Rockman was fun. The Rock Band 4. I remember my roommates bought it on Xbox One, and I tried it. I was like, oh, dude, it's Rock Band. It still
Yeah,
works,
it
but
is,
the
but
things
it
that
just wasn't
the,
enough because they had to rebuy all the instruments.
not quite rebuy, because they created new ones. So
No, that's what I mean. Like they had to rebuy these new instruments
Mhm.
that they were selling for because the old ones for the old rock bands, I don't remember were compatible with it. You had to buy a whole new set of like $30, $40
Yeah.
instruments
Mhm.
on top of the
Yeah,
game.
that doesn't make sense. Yeah, I would just have to dig in more because I remember reading that because the PS3 ones were Bluetooth that they would work on PS4, but I would have to.
Maybe the PlayStation. I had it on 360.
Yeah, the 360 one wasn't because they were wired in.
Right. It
The
was like a USB thing, which you'd think would work, but I don't remember it actually get working for me if because
exactly.
my brother got it.
Exactly. Yes. I'll just for correction's sake, I'll look it up for us and
All
mention
right.
it next week if it's something notable. But yeah, it's so funny that we find out that there's this new Tony Hawk game coming just by this leak by this band. So
Yep.
now it makes me wonder: are they gonna revoke the songs? Because they're like, you broke your NDA.
Really though, I mean that would be fully within their rights if I'm
Mhm.
remembering right.
Or what about if this is marketing? Wha- I mean,
I mean that'd be awesome, but I feel like that wouldn't do anything as much as just revealing that it
mhm,
was there. Outside of like, ooh, juicy story, what this random band just totally like ruined the surprise or something, but like, oh man, there's gonna be a new Tony Hawk or whatever. But I feel like it would do the same thing if they just came up and started like making little reveal teases.
mhm. Yeah, I think my big thing is that who's making this game because it's not Activision, as far as I know. Like, and from what I understand, Tony Hawk himself really soured on his Activision relationship near the end because
I
they did
believe
him
it.
dirty. So that's why it makes me wonder, like, who is making this thing? And I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, it will probably a mobile game." I'm like, you don't license that kind of music for a mobile game.
Not
Like,
just
pick
that,
people
but
up.
like the whole idea of a skateboarding game, I feel would be a little tricky to put into a mobile
Exactly.
situation.
I know someone will have tried because a lot of people like to put a lot of things in mobile that don't make sense, but they still put it. So
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they put like an old Tony Hawk on like the phones or whatever because I mean I always used to be of the mind that you couldn't possibly put a first person shooter on a phone, and here we are with the Call of Duty mobile that's doing very well.
to be
um,
fair, I feel they were the first ones to really crack the nut and make it work really well.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
I do think there are a couple of first person shooters out there that do surprisingly work well.
Modern
um,
Combat.
there was something else. I don't remember. It was like a sci-fi shooter, where like you had like a hub world. You walked around. You went into different missions. It was like surprisingly fleshed out, but
Look,
I never
and
stuck around.
now with the PS4 and the Xbox One controller being compatible in the iPhone,
Mm,
like I feel that's not too much of a barrier now. That people just like connect those controllers through Bluetooth and they can easily play.
right. Which I mean, if that comes down to it, I'd much rather play like existing games than play something made for the mobile because then
Yeah.
you have your full controller.
Hmm.
And a lot of those phones can handle many of the modern games for the most part, just on like a downscaled level, for the resolution and things.
Hmm. Yeah,
But you could
but
do remote play now as well. That I'm told.
it's oh yeah, I play remote play with my controller with my phone from my room. That's how I played a little bit of Borderlands 3 when I was just
Nice.
grinding out and I didn't want to be in my living room. I wanted to be at my in my room with my air conditioning. So it
You're
works
not wrong.
surprisingly well. But yeah, so yeah, Tony Hawk in 2020 apparently launch
Sure.
games for the new consoles. We'll see. And
Oh, that'd be
apparently, just as an aside, because this is also Activision tangent, apparently they're getting ready to release a lot of remakes of their games.
great.
So
Really.
there is rumor that Modern Warfare 2 remastered may be coming this year.
It would be about time, personally.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that Modern Warfare 2 Remastered was rumored back in 2018, but
Right.
but the rumor was that it was just going to be the campaign. And the
Mm-hmm.
rumor also was that that's how they were gonna get away with releasing Call of Duty Black Ops 4 without a campaign, because that remember that game was just
Yeah.
multiplayer and the battle royale and the zombies.
Mm-hmm.
So the rumor was that okay, yeah, they're doing that, and for people that want a campaign, we're gonna remaster one of the better ones.
Mm-hmm.
even though I argue the first game is better campaign wise. So, but it's still Modern Warfare 2 is a really great campaign.
It
Uh,
is.
but then suddenly, I think because I remember the reaction to hearing that they were only gonna launch Modern Warfare 2 just as campaign. That was like people went mental and angry because they were like, "What about Spec Ops? What about the multiplayer?" Those were the things that made Modern Warfare 2 Modern Warfare 2. So
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't surprise me that then they went dormant for 2 years to re-implement those things. And literally, Activision has no games. Remember, last year they only released one game in Modern Warfare. So,
Mm-hmm.
and the year before they did the Spyro remake that was actually really good.
That's
So
true.
they probably saw that in order for them to not look like the company that only releases one game a year, that those remakes were actually profitable. So hey, I'm not against a Modern Warfare 2 remake. The Modern Warfare remake was good.
I think the only thing I would imagine would mess it up is it would undercut whatever sales they're going to make on the next Call of Duty they're going to make.
It could, but it'll depend. What if this new Modern Warfare doesn't launch on next gen? This is just something that they release halfway through the year, and then the new one is for the next gen consoles.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
I would
and anyway,
imagine
the things are backwards compatible anyway. So
also true, so it wouldn't be
yeah,
as much of a deal.
exactly. But yeah, this final story, Paul. Remember my concerns about GDC's cancellation?
Yes.
It seems Microsoft understood these concerns, and a lot of decisions that they were gonna have, they're happening through live sessions with developers, March 17th and March 18th.
And see, I was reading through the schedule for it, and that definitely seemed more focused on like actual GDC for like the developers and
Hmm. Exactly.
publishers and everything. So
No,
that
that's
was
what I'm telling you.
interesting.
That it's not for us. That's not for us. That's for the developers.
Well,
That's
usually, sometimes they have a little something here and there at GDC, but
mhm.
they definitely seemed like they were focused on just dumping all the information to all of the developers for sure. Which I mean, I can appreciate, but
And the thing is, like I mentioned you, that especially for console developers like Microsoft and Sony that are launching this year still,
Mhm.
if everything goes according to plan, like you can't wait until July to give developers the final say on what they can or can't do in their consoles.
Right.
So, like that's why GDC was always on March, because that's enough lead time for people to put in the final touches and finally spec to what the final specs are, because they're
Hmm.
like briefed on those things. So I'm glad Microsoft like realized that and realized that we live in the internet world where you where you can always Skype in,
Yeah,
which
really.
by the way, Skype they own. So,
Oh yeah, you're right.
so
You know what I am once again a little worried about though is like Sony really needs to start doing that for their crew as
mhm,
well. But
exactly.
still no word on that. So
And I
we'll see
tell
what
you,
happens.
like their silence may come to bite them in the butt.
Hmm.
Like it really may. Though there were rumors that apparently Microsoft wasn't more need to do this kind of stuff because apparently developing for the PS5 is really easy.
Huh.
They didn't shy away from having an easy to develop console like they did with the PS4. So maybe that's why they could afford not having to say much. But right now, again, this is all rumors because they don't say a damn thing.
Now, what I'm curious about, if you remember back in the day, they did give out the developer kit to a lot of people. So wouldn't that technically have all the information those people needed?
Yeah, the development kits gives them an idea, but then they send final development kits.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, because you get your first development kit to kind of like start specking originally, but then
Hmm.
this kind of things they tells them more about the kind of technologies that they will be able to do with those development kits. So,
Got it.
but again, I'm not a developer, so I may or may be wrong. But this is just from my understanding, just digging up.
Well, I'm really hoping that they ended up having a lot of information in that thing and that it's just been tight lipped so that all the people. I mean, maybe that plays into what you were just saying about how it's apparently easy to, excuse me, understand the specs from this developer kit. And so people are just running with it, and
Mhm,
Sony doesn't feel the need to tell anybody else about it yet.
exactly. So, and the thing is that I finally made peace that we're not gonna hear any PS5 news anymore. now that with the Ghost of Tsushima thing on June 26th, because
Hmm.
you can read into the tea leaves of, yep, they're just unloading everything now. So let's wait
Hmm.
until the barrel's empty.
True that. I mean, I feel like if I was Sony and had all these games coming out, that would, if nothing else, it would keep everyone distracted long enough to not really worry about us.
Sure.
Not to mention, like, they're still kicking out like this. They're not frantically panicking and not releasing anything and like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? They're like, they're trucking along. They got an
They're releasing
idea of what
games.
they're doing.
That's the
They
thing.
have
They're
some kind
releasing
of
games.
plan.
So
We just don't know it yet.
exactly, it's just inside. I think what makes it hard is comparing all this to 2013. I think that's why the anxiety of when are we hearing more, especially because
True.
of the tables turning and Microsoft now being the one that's more aggressive announcing everything. So, but we'll see.
Not wrong.
But yeah, Paul, that's it for the news, and that's it for the show.
That it is. Alejandro, thank you for joining me, and thank you to everybody that listened to this. This is why we do it. We enjoyed a very meaty level of news rather than anything of some of our more creative episodes where we contemplate concepts and ideas, which those are personally my favorite, but sometimes you just need a good news day to talk
Mhm.
about all the details of what's coming next.
And the thing,
And,
Paul, I
uh
feel that whenever we hit the summer, that's when there's gonna be a dearth of news. So the creative episodes will come back.
But that's what's what crazy is, if all this stuff spreads out enough, and we
We may
talk
not.
about Last of Us, we have Ghost of Tsushima coming that later on, and then we immediately get this PS5 news. We may just be talking about all this news throughout the summer,
Hey, usually summers are really slow, so that may
which
be a blessing
yeah,
in disguise.
I'd accept the change of pace because if there's more to talk about, I say we're never going to run out of things to
Exactly,
say out
because
here.
imagine if they eventually we had to scrape the battle to see what we talk about.
You're not wrong. Well, yeah, we're gonna see how that plays out. But until then, we are going to keep doing what we do. If y'all want to keep listening in, you'll be hearing more of the same, and sometimes we'll get some very different things going on. But until then, y'all stay frosty out there. We'll see y'all next week. Maybe same time, maybe the same channel. You never know. We're
Yes,
Mavericks. We're crazy. So, Alejandro, I want you to press X
to
to play.
play.
Have a great day and night, everybody.
Same to you. Hasta la vista, baby. 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 Vista, baby.